I'm going right into actually presenting a little bit more about our numbers from last year. Basically, at Playlab, our games have accumulated around 25 million downloads. Last year, we did a little bit over $11 million gross across our game titles. We have 7 mobile titles, while only 2 of them are actually on the market. There's 5 more coming up that I'll be showing you as well. We are registered in Bangkok and Manila with studios, and then we have Singapore and Hong Kong that are distribution and headquarters. We are grown to a little bit over 100 people, and that's from 15 different nationalities. So the reason why this talk is actually interesting today is that I found my old talk from last year at Casual Connect, talking about how we grew from 15 people to 40 people. And within the last year, since Casual Connect, we actually grew across 100. One of the reasons for that is that last year, we at Casual Connect also met Neil from Anino Games, and we acquired that studio in Manila a month after Casual Connect or so. So Casual Connect been a great thing for us that we actually meet with the region and are always out looking for new opportunities around here. After we acquired Anino Games, we now have Anino Playlab in Manila and Pocket Playlab in Bangkok, but we rebranded to become just playlab.com, so it's easier for everybody to understand. To go a little bit into our games, then, as mentioned, Juice Cubes was one of the smash hits. Then Jungle Cubes came, and more out. We are releasing Found Cubes, Jewel Cubes, Dragon Cubes, Bubble Cubes, and then we are doing Ranch Run as a co-development in the part. Basically, the way that we have always been looking at games are that you have in a funnel of the users. So if you take an amount of users you have in the game, you can take Flappy Bird as the top growth for that. Then you go down to the match 3 game like Juice Cubes or Candy Crush. Further down to fewer users like Ranch Run or Clash of Clans. And all the way down, you actually have the slots machines. So that's the amount of users in the app. What's interesting on the other part is, though, that if you take the average revenue per user, it kind of grows on that. So even though Flappy Bird have millions and millions of users, their revenue per user is tiny. And if you go all the way to slots casino games, their revenues are huge per user, but they have a very low user base and they're very expensive to acquire. So we are trying to build up the portfolio of actually having games that we can go in and we can acquire users for, and also have and funnel them through all the way down. Because from the middle and over to the right side, that's where you can do user acquisition, paid user acquisition, do marketing. Everything on the left side in the freemium games, you cannot do any user acquisition because it makes no sense to buy users for Flappy Bird. All of that is based on virality, a little bit of luck or a lot of luck. On the right side, that's where we can really break it down and build up the games. And we really like to take like a very strategic point of games of how we can get users into the games by using paid marketing worldwide and have to eliminate all the luck of actually doing games, and then helping our games cross-promote among each other further down. So since we grew to 100 people last year, the organization got kind of messy and a lot of people around now. And we really wanted to keep that startup spirit, even though we're over 100 people plus, because we can see that something magic happens in games once you have a responsibility, once everybody is aligned of what to do and everybody has an opinion about the game. So after we grew up in bigger size, we started doing a lot of these very small teams within the company that have a producer or kind of a mini CEO. That person, in this case, we have Tanin and the Farm Cubes team. That person is responsible for 5 to 15 people on the game team, and he can take every single decision within the game title. Like, I cannot say anything that will overrule it. I can give suggestions just like everybody else. But we really create these small startups within the company that really run with the ball of just creating the best possible game. Then we have all our training sessions and everything else to make sure we also have the best possible people to make the right ideas and have the right insights to the market, so they see in the market what I see as well, and we have a sharing between them. the other way we build it up is basically building the entire company around these teams. So you have the small teams that are the game teams. They need to make the best possible game in Unity. Then we have the services teams around them, which are actually the parts that I'm responsible for as well. But where we build all the analytics, we have the QA release control team, the marketing team, the backend and servers. Then we also do integrations of social platforms and payments, because Facebook, you need to update that all the time. You need to make sure you get all the latest viral features in. And then, of course, training and tech and design, etc. So we have within the company like a small bubble of services teams that need to do nothing else than support the game teams. That also means that we actually enable a lot better to do porting for new different platforms, that we make sure we have the right marketing and user acquisition campaigns in place. All the things that the game team do not have to worry about, but we're worrying about on the other side, and we can do it cross-team. Which also means that we can build up with more and more teams, and what we figured out with the partnership we made with Infinity Levels is that we can actually take an external small indie developer company, plug it inside Playlab, and it works with our entire analytics backend and with our marketing team and our cross-promotion systems and everything else around it. So basically, we have the small units on site, and then within the team, we have the different departments. Of course, we also need to have finance and admin, HR, release control. Another interesting point is that we have also an internal economy, meaning that the producer gets a budget for a game for a certain time of period. They then get to have a milestone that they need to reach. And they can also pick within the company who they want to work with and basically who they want to have on their budget side. So in case there is, let's say, a junior artist that none of the producers currently need because they're all in the late stages of the productions, that person will go into our training pool. And that training pool, it's basically up to the person themselves to build up their portfolio and skills to become attractive enough for the producer to take them in on the team. And if you are, let's say, a senior artist and have long experience, you start to generate a lot more training material for the company. You do more tech talks on Thursdays. You basically pull everybody else up or make training material for once there is somebody in training, which also helps for art direction and all those parts. Where we are heading to next is that since we can now also cater to have outside game companies actually join our game teams, we start to both look for creating the best games, but also finding the best games in Southeast Asia to a global market. So basically picking all the top games that we can find in Southeast Asia, get the right developers in, and then help them push the game out to a global market, because we have the bigger reach, and also in today's world you really need hardcore analytics and user acquisition periods and all of those parts that we already built up, but we can basically plug that into every game and do a very, very hands-on, we call it late-stage accelerator, because it's not publishing, it's closer to co-development. So when we find the good titles that we can see on a test market is performing well, we try to get them to join the team so we can push it out. And then make sure that we, of course, have the capital needed to do the user acquisition. Usually for a good game, it will take a few $1 million in the bank to basically be able to push the games out, to make sure it's a success, because we have such great talent and such great companies here in Southeast Asia, but there's very few bigger game companies that teach that these people actually come out of. So they have no experience on the marketing side, but are really good on the creative and game design side. Second step is that we will, within the next 2 years, also start publishing games in Southeast Asia. So Southeast Asia is a very interesting market for us. It's still a little bit too small for us to do fully focused game on Southeast Asia, but it doubled in revenue last year. It will double in revenue again next year, and that's when it starts to become interesting. We have a lot of interest from both Europe, US, but even more China and Japan, that are now so competitive that they are looking for new markets, and Southeast Asia is just booming like crazy. So We will, within this year, also start expanding a lot more into Southeast Asia with new studios, new partnerships, also for global markets. And we're always interested to talk to new game studios that we can help push to a global market, even without doing any deal. Just get feedback on how, at least our experience with building the games up and publishing it went. That's pretty much what I have for today. So thank you a lot for listening.
Jakob, you said that you don't interfere with the teams in terms of what they're doing, but what's your green light process for approving new projects? Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah. So we are very data-based in terms of we have so many titles now that when we push out a game to the market, so I can show you, I can say, full approval type, you come up with a deck that is interesting. We get it approved. Right now, it's just a few people are approving it. I would actually like at a certain point to go in and create like a brain trust that are also based on people from different teams and not just management side. But the producer gets a budget after that to do a minimum viable product. That basically means that it usually takes around 3 months to get to the market. We push out a game on test markets that have no social interactions or no social implementations like Facebook, no payment, and only like 20, 30 levels in, just to make sure that once we push it out to the market, is this an interesting game mechanic that is interesting enough for people to come back the day after, meaning the first day retention. Because we have so much history and so much data that we can easily compare a new title to any of our own titles, and we can see how much we can actually, we know from the minimal viable product how much we can actually take it up in percentages. So I would say normal games we push on very first prototype, we need to have more than 30% day one retention. That's even in the low end. If you go below that, we would kill the project and redo something else. We had a few times where we actually reused the art. Juice Cubes was a completely different game when we did it first. But because the numbers were not good enough, we killed it and restarted it. Then second stage for retention tests, we go up to at least 40%. You need to hit that barrier. And it's also about setting the milestones for the producers so they can keep getting the budgets. Because if you set a milestone that are, for example, 40% first day retention, 15 day 7, on a product that is still not polished, if you do not hit those milestones to get the extra budget, we basically take the game back and look at it and saying, do we believe that we can take this game to the next level? Can we get it up to 50% or can we not? If we cannot, we will usually wrap it up and what I call give it to marketing, where we basically make sure that the game is still running online, but there is no more further budgets to actually develop the game on the live market. And if you're a producer, and you are a game team and you're working on a game, you really want your game to succeed, and you want to make sure that you keep the budgets, that you can keep all the team members on your team, because we are in gaming, so a few of the games will hit very well, and the producers will basically have unlimited budgets to pick whoever they want to, and the games that are not performing so well compared to our data and revenue once it's on a live market will get smaller budgets and smaller teams to work with. So it's really about also make sure that people are motivated by making games, and it's using data that we can compare them.
If it's not too sensitive, what is your background before being the CEO?
Nothing is too sensitive. As I told Thomas the other day, I would probably never get hired for this job because I dropped out of university. I moved to Thailand around 6 years ago, and I did another startup called PageMoto. So I've been in, I would say, my background is full in business. It started all the way back 8, 9 years ago when I was just below 20. I had a boss in Denmark that also just sent me out to do deals in Asia and to handle my own departments. Basically, after that, doing startups, last team was only around 7 to 10 people. But basically, doing the MBA, the very expensive and tough way of building startups, investing a lot, failing, and then studying a lot into the self-study and how you actually get the best process and the best people in. So from an education point of view, not that much, but I've been working the last 6-7 years with this, and also improving the process and figuring out ways to get the best out of people, because people are different, and especially also when you have everybody from artists to game designers to backend people, different mentalities, figure out what's the drive, and once you figure that out, you can a lot easier work with people, make sure you have the right processes in place.
You talked about flying in people because you're looking for people with the right talent. I, as a student who still has time to craft up my skills, what would be your suggestion for me to make it into a company like yours?
We're always looking for interns. No, but one we actually do, I can tell you about the process where we normally take people in, because of our Bangkok office, it's around 45% that are foreigners from those 15 different nationalities. We usually find people that either apply to us or that we find in working in Europe. We offer them a trip to Thailand, give them 2 weeks hotel, flight, some pocket money to basically come by Thailand to our office, work with us a little bit, figure out if you're actually comfortable here, and also figure out if we need your skills in those parts. If it doesn't work, you had a great trip to Thailand. If it does work, we can extend it and keep working on those parts. You as a student, easiest way possible is if you're technical and you want to go in for the backend part, because the server side and even more important, data analytics. Like, if you go for the data science way, we will hire you tomorrow, no questions asked. Because what we are lacking the most in this region is basically people with I'm not even looking for experience in data science. I'm looking for people that are really good with Excel, that we can push up to a high enough level to understand it, because we have terabytes and terabytes of data. Right now, I think Thomas is our main data guy, and he's also not from a data scientist background for it. But if you look at it, not only to join Playlab, but to join any other company, data will be the most important point for the next years moving forward. Like, in today's world, I can see how many steps I walk. I know when I brush too hard with my toothbrush, it syncs to my phone. All that data will be consumer behaviors, and especially in games where we have so many data points, will be the most important and the most difficult part to hire for moving forward for us.
Thanks for the talk. With regards to company culture and scaling from very small startups to 100-man studio startups, I like the fact that you guys split the team really small. I think it's the same thing that Supercell is trying to keep, a small game team, and then you have management and services as well. But can you share a bit your experience building an Anino Playlabs? Because that's technically a very old studio from Philippines, and they have their own company culture, and how does that absorb into the company culture that you guys have built in Bangkok? And secondly is that you guys seeing moving forward, you guys want to acquire other studios around the region, maybe Indonesia, Malaysia, I don't know, Vietnam, and basically get the South Asian culture of developers moving forward. Is that something in your mind?
Yeah. Very interesting question, because that's a lot of the things we had to deal with. I would say, first of all, we picked Anino because their company culture was very close to ours. They were doing work for hire for a long time. They've been around for 12 years. So they never really had the money to spend on, like in Bangkok, we do nice offices. We also have lunch. Everything is free for employees. You can get whatever tool you want, also the latest Mac in whatever you need in it. Those were some of the things that we implemented in Anino, and the employees loved for that part. I would say from a culture point of view, and how we structured that, is that before the Anino game, I think Thomas and I's titles were just partners. I was handling more of the operations part of the game teams, and Thomas more admin and marketing side. What we figured out is that since everybody's not in the same room anymore, people do no longer know who to contact, and they need to contact like 3-4 different people to figure out the right person. And if Thomas says no, then maybe Jakob says yes. And we really didn't want the mom and pop shop side of it. So culture-wise, we had to be a little bit more strict on how we build things. And Nino Playlab, and Nino, they really picked it up super fast because they had very talented people. We kept everyone, but what we changed and what was the most difficult part is that they've been doing work for hire, meaning that all our tools, they got them up in a week or two, and they understood how to use all processes, and they were actually a lot better at using them than we were, because they're used to having clients that had different demands all the times of what process to use, how to do bugs, and all those paths. That was picked up very easily. What we have to spend the most time on is training of the producers, because when you're used to getting a game design document in and saying, I want the art this way, you lose a lot of the creative side, or at least you don't involve it. So most of our time we actually spend with the producers to understand the free-to-play market, to get them into the data, to love the data part as well, and figure out how to compare their games and what they're producing to anything on the market or anything that we were doing. So for us, yeah, it was mainly a training of producers and creativity. And then we struggled a little bit in Philippines to actually find game designers that were senior enough to really pull it off. Because coming from work for hire, you have great skills, but little creative side, but you can learn that. Yeah, so the question was the actual producer as the data guy and the game designer a little bit, and it is. I think we have two main data guys on every team. It's the game designer and it's the producer. So the producer needs to be on top of the data and understand it, while the game designer needs to do the full level balancing on those parts of the levels. Since we do match 3 games, level balancing is probably 80% of that. Make sure that people feel smart when they play your game, and make sure that I feel smart and my mom feels smart as well, even though we are different players. So levels are fast and easy to crank out. Balancing them takes forever because you keep improving it. We are also internally actually building some of our systems to play our own games. So we can play our own games as the best player and the worst player. So we can better balancing and figure out what's the right point and how does it feel right on those parts. But yes, I would say anyone in the company that joins our team, they learn something about data.